time ago, but it was a real tar
So
baby.
here we are, Ramjoo's Diaries, picking up where we left off, chapter 16, Bombay, January 11, 1924. Persia again. Unhappily, as predicted by me before, the eczema was going from bad to worse. As a last recourse, I got injected under expert medical advice. But this too proved inefficacious. Hence, I was driven to write a direct complaint for the first time to Baba that this extraordinary ailment had become unbearable. The question of the Persian tour is again coming to the front as arrangements for getting passports for Bailey, Sadashev, and Arsov are on foot. The rest of the Mandali are in possession of the passports since putting up in the Irani mansion in Bombay in October. January 15, 1924, Mandali recalled. Today, I received the following letter from Baba. Dear Ramjoo, I received your letter and felt sorry to note your condition. Not the physical irritations, but the mental one. Well, don't feel disheartened. I am today sending you an ointment which you should rub well twice a day on the irritating parts. Begin on receiving it. Also, you and doctor should start on the morning of for Bombay by the Morning Express. Signed, Merwan. January 20, 1924. Subtitle, The Cat is Out of the Bag at Last. Doctor and myself left Lonavala this morning for Bombay. Bailey and Jamshed also joined us in the train as they were going to Baba too. We duly reached Bombay in the noon and found Baba as weak as before, having fasted completely for the last 3 days and putting up in a room in the Barucha building. It was not long before we felt the lively atmosphere indicating a quote unquote bombshell of new plans. However, we were somewhat prepared for the shock by Baba's stray remarks that hereafter only those who could keep company with Baba, who were willing to surrender completely and indefinitely. After the meals, the fateful moment arrived. Baba discussed the new change with myself and doctor in private. The gist of which is something like this. Whatever hopes and expectations Baba had held before us as going to happen and fructify by the 28th February 1924 were now to be considered to be all a failure. Consequently, if we felt to have passed the last 2 years in vain, as well as no longer taking Baba for what we believed him to be for so long, he said he was sorry and asked to be pardoned. Nay, further, we could do what we liked with him by way of punishment. But on the contrary, if we still liked to pull on longer with him, we could do so. but for an indefinite period and on unconditional terms, without any hopes and without the object of their definite fulfillment. Another alternative offered us was to stay home and do what we liked as regards our business or social relations, but be under Baba's instructions spiritually. Of course, we could never countenance the idea of changing our beliefs about Baba, nor consider the time passed in Baba's company to be in vain. On the contrary, the last 2 years will remain to be the most important and instructive in our lives, even if nothing further happens. However, we could not see our way to keep further company with Baba for an indefinite period, but were willing to obey his instructions at home. Upon this, Baba said that if we believed in him and if he was really that which we believed him to be, he was sure of our spiritual awakening sooner or later in this life and in the present form, as surely as the day follows the night, whether we were with him, far away, or even went against him because of our spiritual connection with him. Baba further said he will prove that though we failed, he did not leave us, and then he would become our master. Otherwise, till the time of realization, he was our servant. The sugar coating of quick results was at last off. The bitter pill of spiritual research. However, I take this to be the end of the second term, as referred to by me since leaving the Monzil. Many interesting explanations were given by Baba on spiritual points, as well as cards were played too, when most of the Mandali were present. Also, Baba took food this evening and further declared that he will be taking food regularly once every evening. January 22nd, 1924. Subtitled Secrets. In the course of a general conversation, Baba inquired of myself and Doctor if, when he calls us later on, we shall come and stay with him for a month or two, as at that time he will be explaining the inner secrets promised long ago to the selected few as a forerunner of realization. Baba's mother, Masaji, and Babu came from Pune this afternoon. January 23, 1924, another chapter begun is the subtitle. Upon further inquiry from Baba as to my thoughts on the recent development of events, I said I was still feeling to keep company longer with him, provided I were free to leave him anytime I liked. After some discussion, Baba conceded the point, but told me to reconsider the subject well and decide finally by the 1st February. as he will no longer be responsible for my external affairs in any way, even in case of the passing away of someone from my family in my absence. So consequently, if I accompanied him to Persia, I should no longer hold any hopes externally. Anybody off camera want to read? I can't see if you're there or not.
I will read.
Thanks, Mayor.
January 24, 1924. A compromise. It is almost settled that I am to accompany Baba to Persia. Doctor is also of the same opinion. Both of us are free, however, to leave Baba whenever we like. This means that a sort of compromise has been reached in our relations with Baba. That is, although like other members who will hereafter keep company with Baba, we have not completely surrendered ourselves to an indefinite period as before. By this, I don't mean any personal distinction has been accorded to both of us from the rest of the Mandali by Baba, but that he has been kind enough to consider our special difficulties. In any case, it can fairly be said to be the beginning of a new term of our spiritual schooling. First, there was a period of nearly a year of strict discipline and fixed routine. Then followed a similar period of more freedom in petty affairs, but with physical hardships and constant change, and under the impression of a fixed period. Now, there is no limit to the time, place, and circumstances under which one is to keep company with Baba. Complete surrender is the order of the day. January 27th, 1924. Ghazal singing. The last 2 days were rather uneventful. However, today, Yasin's singing is arranged in the manzil. The singing continued throughout the day without a hitch, but the arrangement to prepare the meals for the Mandali and guests in the Irani mansion at Wajifdar's place was the source of a great inconvenience to some of us, because big vessels containing cooked hot food had to be carried from the second floor to the mansion to the manzil. A pretty uncomfortable distance with that handicap. January 29th, 1924. The humor of language. Today, all of us went to the Persian Council to get the necessary endorsements on our passports for going to Persia. The endorsements were duly secured after each of us was questioned by the council separately. Someone of our party, when questioned in Persian, was heard to say that he did not know the language. The humor of his denying the knowledge of the language in the same language did not occur to him. But we did not take time to have a good laugh at his expense when he came out. January 31st, 1924, special ceremonies. Myself and Bar Soap have been ordered to perform prayers 5 times today. Well, Babu and Yashwant Rao were observing fast from 8 p.m. last night until 8 p.m. tonight. In the evening, we all went to Abdur Rahman Baba's tomb, where through misunderstanding, we all did not perform the Muslim prayer just as Baba meant us to do, and the result was a great storm after our return from the tomb. Baba did not eat or drink anything throughout the day. February 1st, 1924, Baba's fasting. Baba had told us that after the first, that is today, he would be taking food regularly. but he again changed his idea and ordered for his food to be prepared as usual, that is at 2 p.m. But this arrived too late, so Baba did not take anything save tea in the afternoon. Late in the evening, when he took food, it was brought out within a few minutes. Baba looked very ill afterwards. Interesting explanations were, however, given by Baba. All are fasting from 9 p.m. February 2nd, 1924, Sri Narayan Maharaj. Save for Narvas, who kept company with Baba, we all went to Sri Narayan Maharaj, who was at the time in Bombay. According to Baba's words, Narayan Maharaj is also one of the few greatest spiritual personalities of the age. But what a great difference in his mode of living in comparison with our Maharaj. While Upasni Maharaj puts up in a humble little hut of mud and straw, Narayan Maharaj passes his time in palatial buildings with all the luxuries that modern furnishings can afford. Upasni Maharaj had a piece of gunny cloth just sufficient to cover up his groins, while Narayan Maharaj used the finest drapery possible for his clothes. Nay, even a diamond ring flashes on his finger. Even in question of food, the contrast is the same, as we know that the former takes a few handfuls of coarse bread or rice with a bitter vegetable, while the latter is said to have rich dishes of all sorts at meals. In short, externally both are poles apart, and yet both are equally the greatest spiritual personalities. Nay, internally both are one. End of page. Nay, internally both are one and the same. To come to the point, we had to wait for some time as Maharaj was having a shave. However, we soon had the opportunity of paying our respects and then returned back to our own little Maharaj, Baba. At 3 p.m., our fast was brought to an end. Baba received a letter this morning dated the 1st instant from Jamshed, and it contained the following regarding Baba John. On 25th morning, Baba John wept much, and I inquired. I was informed by Rahim that Baba John had wept much. On 30th morning, Baba John got suddenly ill. He, in brackets, Baba John referred to in masculine, vomited 2 or 3 times, moved bowels 2 or 3 times, temperature rose, suddenly went unconscious and lost speech. After a little sleep of intervals, his hands and feet would jerk restlessly, and he would shout as though shaken from sleep through fright and say, "Who is it? What is it?" He would raise his eyes high as if someone were strangling him. Baba was also very restless tonight. I accompanied him for a stroll outside on the open road at midnight, when he complained it to be a very hot, that he was perspiring, although the night was cool enough at the time. February 3rd, 1924. Devotional singing. Singing has been arranged this afternoon. Accordingly, Asthma and other outsiders came at 10 o'clock, followed by Munshi and party at noon. After having meals, we all repaired to the manzil, but as the Bhajan Mandali were late in coming up to the appointed time, Baba came back with some of us to Barucha building and played cards for some time. After an hour, Baba and ourselves came back to the manzil and sat listening to the singing in the side room. However, Baba's annoyance at the singing party's failure to arrive at the appointed hour did not ease, and soon the singing was brought to an end. The rest of the evening, after taking meals, was passed playing cards. Baba received another letter from Jamshed saying that Baba Jan was more seriously ill, and the chief symptoms were feeling too hot, restless, and perspiring. Exactly the same complaint uttered by Baba while strolling with me late last night. A very suggestive coincidence it is. February 4th, 1924, Babajan's recovery. A wire was received from Jamshed that Babajan was better. With Baba's permission, I left Bombay and reached Lonavala this evening to stay with my people till the 18th and returned by that evening to join Baba in the tour to Persia.
Thanks, Mayor. Anybody else that's off camera wish to read? I can't tell if you're there or not.
I can read.
Oh, thanks, Ernie. Go ahead.
February 5th, 1924. Gandhiji's release. Mahatma Gandhi has been released today from jail, and this reminds me of Baba's words uttered some months ago. Shortly, Gandhi will leave jail, whether through death or remittance of sentence, but he will no longer be in jail after some time. The alternative method of Gandhiji's leaving, that is, through death, is a peculiar hint of the fact that he was very near it when he was operated upon in jail. At last, at least one of Baba's prophecies has come true. February 9th, 1924, a tight corner. Baba's letter, which I received day before yesterday, asking me to come and join him on the 13th instead of the 18th, was sufficient to cause me much anxiety because of my wife's sudden and serious sickness. Yet I received another intimation from Baba to be present in Bombay on the 11th, as his birthday was to be celebrated on the 12th, and we were to leave for Persia on the 14th. Here my wife is passing through a crisis, and at least a week would be required for her to get better, according to the doctor's advice. Anyhow, I have decided to follow the letter. February 11th, 1924, in Bombay. Accordingly, I left Lonavala by the evening express for Bombay, joining Patel and Barsuk, who were also on their way to Bombay. We safely reached there at 7 p.m. A spacious canopy is erected in the open courtyard for the festival, gaily decorated with buntings and flowers. February 12th, 1924, formal birthday. There were many outsiders and guests assembled since early morning to celebrate Baba's birthday. However, the home Mandali did not get their usual tea, and this auspicious day began dry. After Baba was profusely garlanded, the singing began. Hardly a couple of songs had been finished when it was stopped. Some trouble arose among ourselves in bringing the food vessels from the Irani mansion, where it was prepared as usual. Baba got much annoyed and was so displeased that he himself went to the Irani mansion and brought some of the big pots. It was quite an unexpected as well as very awkward position. In spite of our best entreaties, Baba waved us aside and brought some of the big pots through the public road, leaving the spectators who knew him by sight dumbfounded. A general confusion followed, and though we all had our meals with the guests, yet Munshi's party seemed to have disappeared. As soon as Baba came to know about this, he followed them in a car and brought them back just as they were crossing the railway bridge near the Charney Road station. After Baba's return with Munshi, the atmosphere calmed down, and the rest of the day passed off normally as the guests dispersed. The singing program was dropped too. February 13th, 1924. Tour postponed. The departure tomorrow to Persia has been postponed, even though it was the reason Baba's birthday was tried to be celebrated yesterday, although it really falls on the 19th. Hence, Doctor left for Lanavla tonight for some urgent business, with Baba's permission, along with Abdullah, who had also come to see Baba off to Persia, and for the premature and I think hence unsuccessful birthday. The canopy was dismantled and the things removed from the courtyard. February 14th, 1924. Maharaja's release. News came from Sakari that Sri Maharaj had left the cage in which he had imprisoned himself for almost a year, the very day of the storm and confusion here. As usual, Baba gave a discourse on spirituality. Many outsiders were also present, including an Irani gentleman of very intemperate habits and belonging to the fast set, who we came to know afterwards, was so affected by a single lecture that at a stroke he gave up strong drinks, intemperate habits, and nay, even his daily meals, and decided to keep himself on only water and bread. Of course, when Baba came to know about this, he called the Irani gentleman and advised him to be of temperate habits, and persuaded him to change his decision of keeping on bread and water, and so going from one extreme to the other. We had been fasting since 2 p.m. for 24 hours, but Baba made us break it at 9 p.m. to continue again from 9 p.m. for 24 hours. February 15th, 1924, another agreement. A further discussion took place about going to Persia, but this time it mainly centered around the route to be taken. Finally, it was settled to go by Bandar Abbas and not via Baghdad as prearranged, since it would be less costly. An agreement was also signed by all to this effect. We, the undersigned, hereby declare and agree that we have undertaken the journey to Persia of our own free will and accord. We further hold ourselves responsible for any mishap that may occur, whether mental, physical, or financial, under any circumstances. That is, Meher Baba is in no way responsible for any consequences of the journey or otherwise for the time we are with him. Dated 15th February, 1924. The fast we were observing since last night for 24 hours was, however, brought to an end at 12:30 p.m. today. This is the second time that for some reason the 24 hours was not completed. It has been decided to start for Persia on the 22nd, and hence also to celebrate Baba's birthday again on the 19th, his real birthday, as the last celebrations had all been upset because of the storm. February 18th, 1924, festival. A Muslim festival ceremony was performed tonight from 10:30 to 11:30, which was well arranged by Munshi's party. February 19th, 1924, 30th birthday. Baba's 30th birthday was celebrated today, but outsiders were not invited. Singing took place and terminated without any hitch. A group photo was also taken, but latter did not prove successful. However, a slight breeze occurred in the afternoon when Baba felt a sudden appetite, but there was no food kept ready for him as he did not dine with us at the time. And through oversight, we forgot to keep aside his meal. Doctor, who had been in Lonavala, came back early this morning to participate in the celebrations. February 20th, 1924. Scratching. The route is again changed, and it is arranged to proceed to Persia through Baghdad. However, only 9 members are to go with Baba, and the rest to remain at their respective places until Baba returns from Persia. Of course, then to join him again. Consequently, it was mutually agreed between Baba and myself that I should remain home and join Baba again when he returns. Again, we began fasting from 9:30 for 24 hours under instructions. Passages had already been booked in the steamer according to the first plan, but after great trouble, Naval managed to cancel them without any loss. However, a considerable amount was spent in vain in foreign telegrams to Persia. February 21st, 1924. Ramjoo's illness. Baba paid visits to Naval and Bourgeois' house this morning, accompanied by myself. In the evening, Ramjoo, who was not feeling well, began to get a high fever. The passages have been engaged via Bandar Berkshire, the latest change of route. The fast was successfully terminated this evening, 7 p.m., rather a couple of hours early. February 22nd, 1924. To Persia at last. We all got up early at 3 this morning. A last meeting was called of all the members, and Baba took the sense of all as to whether to proceed to Iran or not, as although Ramjoo was slightly better, yet he was not completely free from fever. The majority was found to be in favor of abandoning the tour, but Baba decided to undertake the journey. Hence, all luggage, etc., was dispatched to the docks by bullock cart, and Baba and Mandalay came by train. At 7:30, we all boarded the steamer Varela. The following 2 hours passed away very quickly in exchanging farewells, setting the luggage, etc. At 9:30, the steamer weighed anchor after a touching separation with Baba, who embraced and kissed each of us.
Thanks so much, Ernie. Beautiful. Do we have another volunteer? Okay.
I'll read.
Oh, thanks, Bet. Go ahead.
I can read later.
Okay. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Back to Lonavala. Since it was decided that I was not to accompany Baba, it was also settled that Adi should continue writing the diary. Hence, the details of this much talked of Persian tour in correct sequence is found in Adi's diary, which follows, and I think for the time being, my diary comes to a close. It was for about an hour that we lingered on the docks, waving at the steamer on our final adieu as it was still in sight. In the afternoon, I left Dadar and came to Lonavala this evening with Doctor. The following 8 members have accompanied Baba to Persia. 1. Gustaji, 2. Behramji, 3. Adi, 4. Bajifdar, 5. Padri, 6. Masaji, 7. Nervous, 8. Aga Baidul. 17. Persia and travel in West India. February 22, 1924. Goodbye, India. When the steamship Varela weighed anchor at about 9:30 a.m. on the 22nd of February, 1924, and began to recede from the shores of Bombay, the ensuing half an hour was passed hailing back the touching send-off, which was still being waved from the docks by some of the Mandalay. Masaji began to cook, for the party in the steamer. Some assorted vegetable dishes were made for Baba, while potatoes and bread made the general food for the rest of the party. In addition to Behramji being laid up with fever, Adi also went down with seasickness. He became very giddy and vomited frequently. Now, isn't this Adi's diary? Well, okay.
It is, yeah.
Adi also went down with seasickness. He became very giddy and vomited frequently. At dinner time, however, Baba used to feed him, Adi, with his own hands. At Karachi, Pilamai came to see Baba and the Mandalay with flowers and all sorts of eatables and vegetables. There were a few more of Baba's admirers accompanying her. Throughout the voyage, Adi and Behramji were all along laid up, vomiting and exhausted. The number of Shia and Sunni Muslims on board the vessel proved a lively feature with the hot discussions and lectures which they held amongst themselves on the merits of their respective faith and beliefs, and which generally culminated in high spiritual personalities being freely abused. Particularly, a pair of brothers-in-law were the most humorous of the lot. One of them was a Sunni and the other a Shia. The latter was greatly attracted towards Baba after closely following Baba's mode of living and talking. During some discussions, he directly asked Baba as to what religion he, Baba, followed. Baba smilingly answered him that all religions were equal to him. He walked with Baba for some time. He was heard to repeat that if the system of master-disciple were current in his community, he would have taken Meher Baba as his master. Later on, the pair, however, became very aggressive in their discussions amongst themselves, and the climax was reached when, to the great amusement of the party, the brothers-in-law swore against each other and avowed to leave each other in Baghdad, from where they had arranged to start on pilgrimage together. When the steamer began to wade through the Persian Gulf, the sea was quite as calm as a pond. But nearing Bushire, a very cold wind began to blow, setting most of the passengers, including the whole of the party, chattering their teeth. Just at the end of the voyage, that is, while reaching the shores of Bandar Bushire in the steam launch, Baba and Vajifdar began vomiting, although they were quite free of seasickness throughout the trip. Bandar Bushire. As soon as, I hope I'm saying that right, as soon as the party touched land, a tumultuous storm of foreign sounds and movements came to be experienced. The Persian coolies with harness-like contrivances on their backs as luggage carriers showed that they could make up to some extent for the lack of mechanical lifts and trucks by lifting on their backs pyramids of things, such as trunks, beddings, and bundles, heaped one upon the other. Slowly but surely, with bent backs and muttering, "Ya Ali," they made light work of the luggage. Some trouble arose about their charges, but Aga Baidul's typical Persian speaking soon settled the difference. And besides the money, they were given the stale bread and onions remaining in excess with the party. The relish with which they helped themselves to the plain and raw eatables and disappeared them into their stomachs showed them that whatever else they may be, they were also some prize eaters too. As soon as the party took shelter in a house belonging to a Mr. Ghulam Hussein Lodi, the turn came for the mule owners to exhibit their business tactics. It was often that the party came to be addressed with, "Sir, do you want a mule?" which is the commonest means of transport in this half-sleepy land. By the time Nervous could bring in coal, the pump stove was lighted on which Baba warmed himself, as he felt very cold. Soon hearths were lighted in the room on account of the keen, cold winds blowing freely. The atmosphere was felt as very gloomy and uncomfortable. As usual, Masaji began to cook food, while Nervous helped in getting necessary things from the bazaar. Water had to be purchased for drinking purposes, which cost about a rupee, and even at that, it was of a milky color, full of small worms, with which one would hesitate to take even a bath in India. And one had to go to the sea for washing utensils, etc. In spite of the pulled down condition of the majority of the party, it was decided to go to Shiraz by motor, and a car was engaged for almost 400 rupees. The sudden return. The following day, the casualty list got an addition. Padri got a severe attack of fever and was laid down in one stroke. At the same time, a steamer was reported having arrived at the port on her way to Bombay from Baghdad. As usual with Baba, it did not take long for him to decide to return back to India, and after some discussions, it was arranged that Baidul and Behramji should get down at Bandar Abbas and proceed from there into the interior for their respective places, while the rest returned to Karachi. With a great hustle-bustle, the party once again boarded the steamer Baroja, a combined passenger and cargo boat, and beat an unexpectedly quick retreat from the land of fruit and honey. The steamer was found to have limited accommodations for passengers, as it was full of cows, goats, donkeys, horses, and fowl, besides a huge lot of burly, uncivilized Arabs. The behavior and general conduct of the latter were simply found to be quite out of keeping with modern life. Except for killing goats and fowls in dozens for their meals and eating the same lustily, they didn't seem to find any other object to their existence. Some of them would sit for necessities just where they kicked their food. As to manners, one of them once kicked away Nervous's bedding when the latter kept it near theirs just for a few minutes while the deck was washed. And this kicker was at the same time on speaking terms with the party. As religious matters, they were no less rough. While an Arab was observing prayers, another came and began abusing forthwith the former for not facing the west properly. That same man was marked the following day observing prayers, just as he tumbled out of bed without making ablutions or even watching his mouth. Nearing Bandar Abbas, Baba again broached the subject of going into Persia and reproached the Mandali for losing courage so lightly. Padri's fever having subsided a little, it was decided to get down at Bandar Abbas with Behramji and Aga Baidul. Bandar Abbas. When the port was touched, preparations were made to take the small boats to shore. But Padri, who all along strongly favored a return to India, again got an intense fever. Once more, the program was canceled, and Bayramji and Baidul bid goodbye to Baba and the rest of the party and left the steamer on the shore boats. During the hour or two that the steamer had laid anchor, Padri once again began to revive, and just when there were only about 15 minutes left for the boat to move on, another attempt was made to land. The mail boat leaving for the shore was engaged, beddings, etc., packed and rolled in. When Padri relapsed back at the nick of time, the beddings were respread on the deck, and after all, the party proceeded towards India. At the suggestion of some Gurkhas in the ship, it was planned to go to Nepal after leaving Padri at Karachi for treatment under Nervous's nursing, and thus such a radical change in the touring program came about. Back to India. Touching the ports of Bahrain, Lingay, Hanjam, and Muscat, the Barocha came alongside the Karachi docks in the beginning of the second week of March. Bajifdar went to leave Padri at Pilamai's place for treatment with Nervous to look after him, and Masaji began to look out for a bullock cart to remove the luggage to the city railway station, direct from the docks, as it has been settled to start forthwith towards Nepal. A Victoria Walla offered to whisk away the party of 4 with all the luggage, lock, stock, and barrel in one trip if he were paid 3 rupees for the distance. It was agreed upon, and the conveyance was packed like a tin of sardines with all the luggage and the 4 of them, and it started. The zigzag course and an occasional lurch that the cart was subjected to, with the bumper load it contained, testified to the driver being soaked with wine. However, the precarious drive came to a safe end. The luggage was removed in the station or waiting room building, where the party put up for the night. Bajifdar soon joined them, and as it was nearing 10 p.m., all retired for the night, with the exception of one to keep watch over things. The watch was continued throughout the night by turns. In the morning, all took baths under the public tap in the courtyard after stretching blankets and sheets as a temporary cover. The mountain load of luggage, containing for the most part provisions and other necessities that had originally been taken for the Persian tour, was a source of great trouble and embarrassment to the party, especially Bajifdar and Masaji. Because coolies were not to be engaged, the two had to bear the brunt of the thing. To add to the physical strain, there was the prospect of being troubled by the railway people. In fact, a good beginning was made in this connection the first day at the starting station Karachi, when a great row took place about the luggage and its passage into the platform.
Thanks, Bet.
You're
Elizabeth.
welcome. What a harrowing chapter. Oh my gosh. Start and stop, start and stop.
Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Excuse me, I didn't hear you at first.
That's okay.
Okay, so to Nepal. Somehow the party squeezed in the Quetta mail with the help of Nervous, who had come to the station to see them off, and started towards Nepal. While changing into the narrow gauge railway at Hyderabad Junction, Masaji lost his bedding and with it his temper. And this led to a serious quarrel between him and Gustaji. This was, however, quenched by Baba, who at such moments looked unconcerned and reserved. And Masaji was given some sheets and a blanket or quilt from his, Baba's, own bedding. Bajifdar had to bear the lion's share of the various physical and mental troubles of the haphazard travel, inasmuch as besides bearing the individual inconvenience and burden equally with all, he had to look after the general management about time, tickets, luggage, and food. Baba's personal teasing and grumblings, which are profuse under inconvenient circumstances, added sauce to his soup of suffering. On their way to Nepal at Lucknow, the party left the train and went in the city to get a pair of slippers for Baba. But none came to his liking, and the party returned to the station with edibles for the journey, which was then continued. Throughout the journey, Masaji cooked food and prepared tea in the train. Next page. Prepared tea on the train on a stove, which was an additional troublesome feature of the tour. The progress was checked at Raxaul, the frontier station of Nepal, where the party was not allowed to proceed into Nepal proper. The party waited at Raxaul, while telegrams were dispatched in vain to the authorities concerned, seeking permission to enter the, quote, forbidden land, end quote. They were informed that the party had been there only a few days earlier. Had the party been there only a few days earlier, entry could have been granted on account of a big religious fair there. But now the pilgrims were, on the contrary, returning back, and hence none could be allowed entry unless on a bona fide trade or other substantial reasons. It must be because of the division of Pakistan and India or something. At Magar. Hence, the question of proceeding further was dropped, and the Manjali came to Magar at Saint Kabir's tomb and stayed here for a couple of days. About 50 poor were fed here. All the surplus provision store that was carried throughout the journey, and voyage to and from Persia was distributed amongst the needy. The luggage was also considerably reduced. Some big empty jars were given over to the local station master. Kabir Sahib has 2 tombs. One is recognized by the Muslims as the true grave, and the other is believed by the Hindus to be the real grave. During the stay here, a quarrel was witnessed amongst some wandering pilgrims putting up near the tomb, when Baba intervened in their quarrel and gave them a sound lecture on how to behave when one lives the life of a pilgrim. From here, the party came to Kaunpur. It took about a couple of hours horse carriage drive in the city before a suitable traveler's shelter was found for the Mandali stay. During the stay here, the party once went to the local bathing steps by tram cars and had baths there. Baba going alone. After leaving Kaunpur, Baba instructed Bajifdar to return to Bombay, Masaji to Pune, and Gustaji and Adi to Ahmednagar. The latter he asked to look for a suitable place for him to stay with the Manjali somewhere in the vicinity of Sikori, preferably within a radius of 5 to 6 miles of Sikori, and got down alone at Itarsi. For some days, Baba moved about alone in the surrounding country and also came across some perfect ones during these solitary ramblings. Nearing the end of March, once again, Baba joined the Mandali and came back to Arangow. End of excerpt from Adi's diary. March 14th, 1924. Some news. Although I had decided before to stop writing my diary, yet the postcard which I received today from Rustam tempts me to reproduce it here, which is as follows. I hope you know I hope you know that Baba has changed the destination of their journey after reaching Bandar Bushir. They came back to Karachi and are going to go to Nepal. God knows what else is forthcoming. Further, Doctor and I met Bailey in the train when the latter shed more light on this, quote, wild goose chase, end quote, externally, of course, to the effect that, quote, Baramji and Baidul proceeded to Persia while Baba came back to Karachi from Bushire on account of Padri's illness. Vajifdar went with Padri to leave him at Pilamai's place in Karachi with Nervous to look after him. The rest proceeded by train direct from the docks to an unknown destination without even letting me, Bailey, see them, end quote. Bailey is to stay in Pune until further orders. Labor Yoga at Erangown, March 20th, 1924. As you were. I received a letter from Munshi today with the following news, quote, the latest news regarding Baba is that he has sent away all the members to their respective places from Atarsi. Mr. Vajifdar has returned to Bombay. Majors Adi and Gustaji have gone to Ahmednagar. Masaji to Pune, while Nervous and Padri are left at Karachi. The latter is reported to be very ill. Baramji and Aga Baidul have proceeded to Iran. Baba separated from the party at Atarsi, and nothing further is known about his movements. He has, however, instructed Mr. Gustaji to look for a suitable place for him somewhere in the vicinity of Sakori, say at a radius of 5 to 6 miles from it, end quote. March 26, 1924, a call from both sides. I was writing the diary in Fair from short notes in my friend Mr. Abdul Tayyib's shop. When at about 12, the telegraph peon appeared with a telegram addressed to me. I almost half guessed the contents, and upon opening, it was as follows. Come to Arangown immediately, Merwan. Accordingly, I began to prepare for leaving by the 2:30 p.m. passenger train. Just after a few minutes, I began to have fever, and within half an hour, it was so much intensified that I was forced to lie down. It is a very strange coincidence that half an hour ago, I was fit as a fiddle, and after a few minutes, after I got the blessed telegram, I was down with a vengeance. I may add here that I was not at all shocked or felt any considerable excitement in receiving the wire. In fact, I was expecting a call anytime, knowing Baba to be back in India. Hence, this sudden change is very remarkable. Of course, I took necessary precautions in getting a fever mixture from my friend, Dr. Bivalkar, and after wrapping myself in shawls, I tried to walk to the station, which is only a few hundred yards from my house. But my limbs began to non-cooperate, so I had to get a carriage. After remonstrations from my family members, I came to the station and started by the same train. The fever subsided a little, and without any considerable difficulties, I safely reached Erangown by about 10:30 at night. March 27, 1924, the third term. After the formal exchange of news, Baba informed me that as he was hereafter going to settle at one place again, and that most probably at Erangown, I could also join him immediately. Of course, some occupation will be arranged for me later on at Ahmednagar to maintain my family. I agreed to do so, but as the marriages of my sisters-in-law are arranged to take place on the 1st, Baba allowed me to return to Lonavala and stay there up to the 7th of April. Accordingly, I left Erangown walking towards the Ahmednagar station to catch the train for Pune.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
You're welcome.
I think that's it for today. Yeah, good place to pick up next week.
What's the next story about? I just see April 8th.
Oh well, I stopped the share.